I am hopping on a live stream for just a few minutes this weekend to talk about a question that I'm getting a lot, which is people taking full length or simulated practice exams for the MBE and not getting the scores that they want and saying, how do I use selective intuition more effectively? And I thought it might be helpful for me to just tell you some of the things that I typically say to people when they're in that situation. Let me just talk about how you use selective intuition when you're studying and now getting ready for the bar in a couple of days. I tend to see scores from people that are less than what they would expect or want to have. And they say, I'm trying to use selective intuition, but it's not working very well for me. So let's just talk about some things around the general approach. First, I want to suggest that you block out in 25 question blocks the time that you need for the MBE. What I mean by that is it should take you about 35 to 40 minutes to do 25 questions. The math is somewhere in the middle of that, probably 37 or 38 minutes. Our goal is for you to finish 100 questions in 2.5 hours on the actual bar exam. Now, the importance of doing this is that I want you to map out where you want to be for question 25, where you want to be time wise at question 50, where you want to be time wise at question 75. And then when the exam starts on Wednesday or Tuesday afternoon, if you're in Florida, I want you to look at your test book and write down those benchmarks at question 25, 50, and 75. Go ahead and put that time in. So if you're starting the test at 9 a.m. and you're saying to yourself, well, I think I need 35 minutes to get through the first 25 questions, 9:35 is your first benchmark note. Now, this is going to help keep you on pace throughout the entire exam. That's one benefit. The second benefit is that if you think about doing questions in 25 question groups, it's nowhere near as overwhelming or as intimidating. What I'd like you to do at those benchmark or pit stop moments is when you get to question 25, as long as you're on target for your timing, I want you to stop, put your pencil down. I want you to put your feet flat on the floor, and I want you to take 3 deep breaths. Close your eyes. And with the first breath, relax. And I just want you to relax your body because you're going to be tight. You're going to be short. You're going to feel it in your shoulders. And then second breath in as you relax your mind and specifically relax your face. I know that sounds weird, but face is going to be all scrunched up. And it's good to just relax it and let it work. And then a third breath. And I want you on that relax to imagine a plant or a flower in full bloom. And this is what we call the resource state. If you're a photo reader, you're already familiar with this. If you're not, it's just a way getting your brain and your body relaxed again. So you've done that at question 25, taken a moment and just reset yourself. Now you're on to the next set of 25 questions, and you're going to do the same thing when you get to question 50. If your timing is good, take those 3 breaths and then start again. And you do the same thing at question 75. So this is the first step, is to just think about working in 25 question increments. Remember, our goal here is 90 seconds on average for a question to answer a question. Some questions you probably already discovered you can answer in way less than 90 seconds. What you want to avoid in general is getting to the 2-minute mark. What we've discovered over the years, based on the data, is that at 2 minutes, you have less than a 25% chance of getting an answer correct. So that isn't going to work well for you at all. So what do you do about that situation where there's a really tough question and you don't know how to answer it and you'd have to guess? Here's a really simple solution. On Tuesday at lunch, if you're in Florida, but for everybody else on Wednesday in the morning, before you leave for the test center, take a piece of paper, cut it up into 4 pieces, A, B, C, and D, put those 4 pieces in a hat or a bag or someplace, reach in and pull out one. Whatever letter you pull out is going to be your default answer for the entire day. Don't change this from morning to afternoon. But the idea here is that, let's say you pull out the letter A. If there's a question and you can't answer it, and you really can't answer it, go ahead and just mark it as an A. There is not an equal distribution between the answer choices A, B, C, and D on the bar exam. But what we do know is that if you've got, let's say, 10 questions where you don't know the answer and you mark the same letter each time, on average, you're going to get 2 to 4 of those questions correct. And I'll take 2 to 4 all day long. That's not a bad number on questions that you just didn't have any understanding of, no ability to work through. Now, it's important that you not Christmas tree. It's important that you not start with letter A, for example, in the morning and switch to letter B in the afternoon. Whenever you pull in the morning, that's the letter that you're going to use for the entire day. I said I was going to talk about selective intuition. I'm getting there. I just wanted to set the table with those couple of things first. How does selective intuition really work? The idea here is that we have been all along in this course building information into your non-conscious brain. I'm going to note it as being back here, the back part of the head. The front part of your brain is the prefrontal cortex, and that's the conscious processor. We've done very little to feed the conscious processor. We haven't asked you to memorize. We haven't asked you to do flashcards. We haven't asked you to have mnemonics or to cram. And so as a result, there's very little in your conscious brain. Consciously, you're not very well prepared for this exam. However, non-consciously, you're very well prepared for the exam. And so what we've got to do is we've got to allow the conscious and the non-conscious to cooperate. We need the non-conscious to assist you in answering the question. That's hard to do when you got a lot of junk in your head, when it's noisy in your brain. Some people call this monkey brain. I call it matote. That's an Aztec word for the chaos of the bizarre. It just means there's a lot of voices. There's a lot going on in your head. So the first step in selective intuition is calming yourself. Before the beginning of the test, before every session of the exam, whether it's essay or MBE, you need to do the 3-2-1 relax, check your breathing, just quiet yourself. Try and get your brain as quiet as humanly possible. Don't be racing. How does the non-conscious communicate the answer choice that you need? There's several things that people report over the years, and this is not based on just a handful of people for a year or two. This is 30 years and literally thousands of people. Here's what they tell me about how they see answers. Some people will say, I see the answer rise up off the page. Others will say, I see the correct answer in bold or in a different color than the other answers, or it's in focus and the other answer choices are not in focus. Some people will say, I hear a voice telling me what the answer choice is. And frankly, often they hear it in my voice simply because you've been listening to me for so long, but you could hear it in any voice. So those are some of the ways the non-conscious communicates and says, that's the right answer. All right. I'm working towards the actual mechanics of how to do this, I promise. I just want to set the stage to tell you that if you trust your non-conscious, it is trying to tell you what the right answer is, but often we're just not listening to that. So how do you actually use selective intuition? When it's time to answer a question, you begin by looking at the answer stem. That is, what's the call of the question? Now, let me be very clear. You never, ever read the answer choices. You're just looking at the actual question stem. Then you go to the fact pattern itself and you read the fact pattern with that answer stem in mind, because now that gives you some perspective or focus. After you've read the fact pattern, go back, look at the answer stem again. Now you stop and you ask yourself, what's the result that I think is required? And in most MBE questions, the result is binary. That is, two of the answers will be party A wins or such and such a result occurs. The other two answers will be party B wins or a different result will occur. Now, this isn't always the case, but in our experience, about 75 to 80% of the questions will fall into that category. So you preview first who you think is going to win or what result is going to obtain. Then you ask yourself, what's the reason? Plaintiff wins because, or this result happens because. And you try to formulate as closely as you can the reasoning that you think is appropriate. You may have to stop for a minute and just quiet yourself to let your non-conscious bring that material back. If you're a photo reader, you're going to get that very quickly. If you're not a photo reader, it's still there. It's just not maybe quite as quickly coming to you, but it'll get there. After you've previewed your result and the reason, now you go to the answer choices. Let's say that you previewed that the plaintiff is going to win. I don't even look at the answer choices and say defendant is going to win. They might be the right answer, but I've already committed myself to the plaintiff wins, and I'm only going to look at those two choices. It will only serve to confuse you and disrupt your flow to look at those two other choices. So just let go of it. You've already cut it down to two. There might be a question that's got three responses that say plaintiff win. And that's fine. You look at those three. It's not 100% of the time that's going to be 2 and 2. Now, having looked at those two answer choices that say, in our example, plaintiff is going to win, now you look at the reasoning. If the reasoning behind one of those choices is roughly the approximate of what you thought, mark it and be pretty confident that you got the right answer. And in fact, as you're practicing, you'll see that happens all the time. Those are the questions you can answer typically in less than 90 seconds. You just know them and it's obvious and you mark them and go on. So if you see that answer choice, yay, that's good, mark it, move on to the next question. Now, what happens more frequently is that you don't see an exact match to your reasoning. Now it gets a little more tricky, and I want to give you a couple of ways that you can eliminate. And the reason we call this selective intuition versus just intuition is that now you do a little bit of selection. What you want to do first is look at the two choices. And one of the things that we know that examiners do when they're writing answer choices is that they say, all right, the plaintiff is going to win, and here's the correct answer. But we need another answer that says plaintiff wins that's not correct. So how are we going to make it incorrect? One of the ways you can make an answer incorrect is that you write a reason or an explanation with your answer choice that's inconsistent with the fact pattern itself. For example, the fact pattern says in a contracts problem that the plaintiff put the signed offer into the mailbox and mailed it before they heard back from the seller they were canceling the contract. Okay, now we go to our answer choices, and one of the answer choices says plaintiff will win because they heard from the seller long before they put the the contract in the mailbox, or the defendant would win, whatever that might be. That doesn't make sense. It's different than what the fact pattern said. And so it's the wrong answer. So if you see something in that explanation that's inconsistent with the facts in the fact pattern, that's a quick and easy way to eliminate that choice. Take the other one, no matter what it says, and that's your answer, and you move on. So that's one way that the examiners write an incorrect answer. Another way that they write an incorrect wrong answer, or an incorrect right answer, if you will, is that they'll have the right conclusion, the right party that wins, but then their statement of law that supports it is either wrong or just irrelevant. And so you'll get these statements that say things like, the mailbox rule no longer applies in America. Yeah, that's not true. And so when you get these sorts of rules or statements that are not correct as a matter of law, then that's the wrong answer. And that will never be the right answer. So just eliminate it, select the other one, and you're good to go. So those two ways, I think, are the fastest ways to determine if you have a correct result, but for the wrong reason. It's either inconsistent with the fact pattern or it's just a flat out incorrect statement of the law. Let's say that you still can't figure it out after those two quick ways of cutting it. There is a third method, which is kinesthetic, that I think has got some value if you get down to that point. Now, the kinesthetic method is that you literally take your thumb and forefinger and you make a circle with it, and you take your index finger and you try to open your index finger as you answer questions. If I were to say, my name is Fred, it's tough to get my hand out of here. But if I say my name is Jackson, my fingers open up pretty easily. The way that this translates is you say, the correct answer is A. The correct answer is B. Because remember, we're only trying to deal with two answer choices most of the time. Now, you'll feel some tension or pressure for the incorrect answer. Why is that? Again, it's your non-conscious trying to communicate with you. It doesn't use words, so it's using this kinesthetic method of making it a little tougher to get your finger out. You should try it and see how it works in practice this weekend and see if it makes a difference for you. For some people, it's successful and they're very sensitive to it. Other people say, I didn't see anything, it didn't do me any good at all. And if it doesn't do you any good, don't do it, obviously. But it's another third way, I think, that you can try and eliminate an answer choice. Let's say you've been through all three of those methods, nothing's worked for you. At this point, really what you need to do is just take your best quick decision, just guess and move on. Now, if one of those two answer choices happens to be your default answer letter, make it that letter. Okay. So if I chose A as my default answer all day long, and I'm stuck between A and C, and I can't eliminate them based on inconsistency with a fact pattern or inconsistent statement of law I tried to do A and C. I can't tell the difference. If my default letter is A, I'm marking A regardless, and I'm just moving on. Okay. Now, I think sometimes what happens is that we ponder over these too long. When I'm doing this experiment with students, one of the things that happens is I start yelling at them, answer the question, answer the question. People linger way too long. Just answer it. You don't have to get all these questions correct. The key here is to keep moving. It is not to linger on a particular question. That's why you set the benchmarks for where you want to be on the clock at 25, 50, 75, so that you know that you're on target. If you're running a little late hitting that 25 question benchmark, got to pick it up. Same thing at 50 and 75. Basically, what selective intuition will let you do, if you trust it, is it will improve your scores dramatically. It will let the non-conscious be in the game. And this is critical. When I see scores that come back from students and they're getting bottom 1%, 2%, 3%, bottom 10% in a particular subject, it's because they didn't use selective intuition. They shut down and they tried to work from their conscious brain. It is not there. It's like taking your car to the gas station and you fill up the gas tank with fuel, but you don't charge the electric engine. And then you say you're going to drive cross country on your electric engine. It isn't going to happen. You absolutely have nothing in your conscious brain. Sorry, that's just the reality. So you got to work from the non-conscious. You got to trust this. And I know some of you are saying, "Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use my mnemonics and flashcards." It's up to you. It's your journey. But I can tell you that when I see big jumps in scores, it is almost always because somebody just relaxed, trusted their intuition, used this methodology, and kept moving through the exam. Look, there is no reason for you to not finish all of these questions with 30 minutes or more left over. You just don't need more time. And I know it feels like if you have more time to answer it, you get it right. But here's what we know statistically. It just doesn't work that way. After 110 seconds, your odds of getting the question drop to about 25%. At 120 seconds or 2 minutes, it drops below 25%. You're dead if you get to 2 minutes. That's all I can tell you. Don't do it. Practice this weekend. You don't have to do full length tests to practice selective intuition. You can practice on 10 questions at a time. Practice it. Try to get your brain quiet and then work through it. Try these techniques and see what happens. If you do that, I think you're going to see great improvement in your score. And then ultimately, I think you'll be pleased with the results. Final point I want to make. You may not have gotten great scores on your practice test earlier this week or this weekend. So what? It is not an absolute. They are markers. They show us where you might be, but they don't show us what you absolutely are going to have to do. In every exam, I see people that tell me that they got 50% correct on such and such practice test, and then they get a great score on the MBE. There's not necessarily a dramatic correlation here. And we do know that some of these tests will help predict where people are going, but that's only if people do on the exam what they did in practice. So if your results in practice weren't what you wanted, change what you're doing. I don't know how else to say it. If you're not getting the score you want right now, then I'm telling you, you're probably not using selective intuition and you need to change what you're doing. And if you do that, then you can get a much better score. I hope that's helpful. I want you all to have a great exam, and I hope that this is helpful information for you. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.